My name is Jane Jerry, 31 years old. On December 30th, my mother called and said with ice in her voice, "Don't come to New Year's Eve. You'll only embarrass everyone. This night is for celebrating your brother Ethan's $400 million acquisition by Core Civic. Your pathetic little justice fantasies would ruin everything." I spent that night completely alone in my Chicago apartment. At 12:01 a.m., my phone exploded. Ethan's voice was breaking. "Jane, what the fuck did you do? ProPublica just dropped the article. The Senate has everything. Dad is having chest pains. Mom is screaming. The entire deal is collapsing. What did you do?" They had no idea the daughter they erased and humiliated for years was about to destroy everything they built on my stolen work. If this story already hits you in the chest, hit like right now. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because what happened next will make you furious. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is. I want to know who's still here with me. Let me take you back to understand how we got here. Because this wasn't an impulsive act. This was 3 years of documentation, 8 months of investigative journalism, and one perfectly timed detonation. I grew up in a family where justice meant something very specific. My grandfather, Malcolm Jerry, served on the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals for 17 years. His oil portrait hung in our foyer in Lake Forest. Black robes, stern expression, American flag in the background. He died when I was 10, but his philosophy saturated every family dinner. Justice means rules. Rules mean order. Order protects civilization. My father, Theodore Jerry, followed that path. 25 years as a federal district court judge in Chicago. Over 3,000 cases. He believed in sentencing guidelines the way some people believe in scripture. My mother, Victoria, spent 17 years as a federal prosecutor. White-collar crime. Securities fraud. She won 78% of her cases. And then there was Ethan, 3 years older than me, and born to wear the family legacy like a perfectly tailored suit. Stanford Law and MBA, Supreme Court clerk for Justice Alito, the golden boy who could do no wrong. I was the anomaly, the daughter who asked the wrong questions. I was 8 years old when I first said it. Family dinner, 1998. My grandfather was visiting, talking about a case he'd just affirmed, 20-year sentence for a repeat offender. I asked, "What if the rules are wrong? What if someone is innocent?" He smiled. The kind of smile adults give children who've said something adorable and naive. That's what appeals are for, dear. But most people in prison belong there. Don't let idealism cloud judgment. Ethan, 11 years old, nodded seriously. I stayed quiet. But I didn't agree. That pattern repeated for the next 20 years. By the time I graduated from Northwestern Law in 2019, the family expectations were clear. I'd join a corporate firm, make partner, maybe work my way into in-house counsel at a Fortune 500. Ethan had already blazed the trail. Big law, prestigious clerkship, partnership track. At my graduation dinner, my father raised his glass. To Ethan, continuing the family legacy at the Supreme Court level, and to Jane, who's finding her own path. The pause before finding her own path lasted 3 seconds. Everyone at the table noticed. No one commented. I'd already accepted a position at the Cook County Public Defender's Office. Starting salary, $58,000 a year. My student loan debt, $168,000. The math didn't work. My parents knew it. Their silence was deafening. My mother tried one more time. "Darling, you can do pro bono work at a firm. Don't limit yourself." Ethan's contribution, "Jane wants to save the world. That's sweet." I started in October 2019, office on West Harrison Street, 5 miles from my parents' downtown law offices. Might as well have been different planets. I learned quickly what the criminal justice system really looked like from the defense side. My average caseload was 185 active cases. Most of my clients were black or brown. 85% couldn't afford bail. They sat in jail for months waiting for trial. Not because they were guilty, but because they were poor. And everywhere, algorithms were making it worse. Risk assessment tools told judges my clients were high risk based on their zip codes. Sentencing software recommended maximum terms because they'd been arrested before. Not convicted, arrested. Parole boards denied release because an algorithm predicted they'd reoffend. The system wasn't looking for truth. It was looking for efficiency. And efficiency meant keeping people locked up. I kept thinking, what if we built an algorithm that looked for innocence instead of assuming guilt? So I started building one. Nights and weekends, January 2020 through August 2021. 20 months of work while maintaining a full public defender caseload. I pulled 500 wrongful conviction cases from the Innocence Project database and identified patterns. Brady violations, prosecutors hiding evidence, ineffective counsel, false confessions, eyewitness misidentification, forensic errors. I built a natural language processing system that could review case files automatically, cross-reference witness statements for inconsistencies, flag constitutional violations, identify procedural timeline errors, 8,400 lines of Python code. I called it Second Chance, not because everyone deserved a second chance, but because everyone deserved a first chance at actual justice. I filed 3 provisional patents in 2021, March, June, November, before I ever used the algorithm publicly, before anyone knew what I was building. In September 2021, I started beta testing with 3 other public defenders. By November, we had our first success. Anthony Mitchell, 42 years old, wrongfully convicted of murder in 2003, 18 years in Stateville Correctional Center. My algorithm flagged a Brady violation. The prosecutor had withheld a witness statement that contradicted the timeline. The witness said he saw the victim alive 2 hours after Anthony was supposedly 5 miles away. The statement had been in the file the whole time. No one had caught it. We filed a motion. 3 weeks later, Anthony walked out. He hugged me in the courthouse hallway. "You gave me my life back." I didn't tell him it wasn't just me. It was 8,000 lines of code looking for what the system had missed. Over the next 11 months, we freed 11 more people. Darius Coleman, 6 years for armed robbery he didn't commit. Maria Vasquez, 9 years on a drug trafficking charge built on an illegal search. Curtis Washington, Keisha Roberts, James Sullivan, Patricia Coleman, Raymond Johnson, Ashley Torres, Marcus Bennett, Linda Morrison, Christopher Hayes. 12 people. 156 years collectively served for crimes they didn't commit. The Chicago Tribune ran a few pieces. The Illinois Innocence Project put out press releases. But it was local news. Small victories in an overwhelmed system. My family barely noticed. At Christmas 2021, I mentioned Anthony's release. My father said, "That's nice, dear. Pass the potatoes." Ethan was announcing his idea to start a legal tech company. My father leaned forward. "Tell us everything. This could be revolutionary." I realized then, my work saving an innocent man's life mattered less than Ethan's hypothetical startup. But I kept building, because the algorithm worked, and people were walking free. In February 2022, Ethan called me. Could we have dinner at our parents' house? He wanted to discuss my work. I was surprised. And, I'll admit, hopeful. Maybe he finally saw what I was doing. Maybe the family would finally understand. We met in March at Intelligentsia in Millennium Park. Ethan arrived in a tailored suit, looking every inch the successful attorney. I came straight from a bond hearing, still in my rumpled court outfit. "Your algorithm is brilliant," he said, "but it's limited to pro bono work. What if we scaled it? Made it accessible to public defenders nationwide?" I felt something I hadn't felt from my family in years. Validation. I showed him everything. The GitHub repository with my full code, technical documentation, case study data from all 12 exonerations, the training methodology, how the pattern recognition worked, the accuracy rates. He asked smart questions. How do we ensure accuracy? What's the false positive rate? Can this be automated further? In April, he proposed a partnership. He'd handle the business side, incorporation, fundraising, scaling. I'd continue developing the technology. We'd help public defenders across the country. He sent me a partnership agreement. I started reading it. The language felt wrong. It listed me as a consultant, not a co-founder. Ethan would own all derivative works. I told him I needed my lawyer to review it. Jane, come on. We're family. Don't you trust me? I should have listened to that voice in my head. The one that said, when someone weaponizes family to bypass professional protections, run. But I wanted to believe. I wanted to believe my brother saw my work. Saw me. I didn't sign. But the damage was done. I'd already given him everything he needed. In June 2022, Ethan incorporated Justice AI Technologies. I wasn't listed as a co-founder. I owned 0% of equity. In July, TechCrunch ran a piece. Former SCOTUS clerk launches AI justice platform. The article quoted Ethan directly. I developed this algorithm during my work in criminal justice. I called him. That's my algorithm. Why isn't my name on this? I'm the one who made it commercially viable. You built a research tool. I built a business. In August, he raised $12 million in seed funding. Andreessen Horowitz, Founders Fund, top-tier Silicon Valley money. But here's what made me physically sick when I saw the pitch deck. He wasn't using my algorithm to help public defenders. He'd inverted it. The product was called Recidivism Predict. Same code I'd written, same pattern recognition, same database structure. But the scoring was flipped. My algorithm, high score equals likely wrongful conviction, flags cases for review, helps free innocent people. His algorithm, high score equals likely to reoffend, recommends denial of parole, helps keep people imprisoned. Same code, opposite morality. He was selling it to district attorneys' offices, parole boards, state prison systems, $15,000 per month per jurisdiction. By October 2022, he had contracts with 18 DA offices across 11 states. I built a tool to find innocence. Ethan took the exact same code and made it assume guilt, and prosecutors loved it, because it gave them algorithmic justification to do what they were already doing, keep people locked up. In November 2022, I made a public records request. I needed to see where his algorithm was being used. The results made me want to vomit. The 18 jurisdictions using Recidivism Predict included the prosecutors who'd fought Anthony Mitchell's release. The same office that had hidden the witness statement for 18 years was now using my code, corrupted and inverted, to deny parole to other defendants. But worse, I found my 12 exonerees in Justice AI's database. Anthony Mitchell, freed in November 2021, was now flagged as 73% recidivism risk. The algorithm, my algorithm, labeled him high risk based on his zip code, his prior arrest record, and his employment gaps. Never mind that he'd been innocent. Never mind that those prior arrests were part of the wrongful conviction. Never mind that his employment gaps existed because he'd been in prison for a crime he didn't commit. My success in freeing him had been weaponized into his ongoing surveillance. All 12 of them, tracked by the corrupted version of the tool that had freed them. In January 2023, Justice AI raised $35 million in Series A funding. Valuation: $180 million. That's when I discovered my father had invested $200,000. I confronted him at Thanksgiving 2023. Dad, you know he stole my algorithm. He didn't deny it. I read the term sheet. You're not listed as inventor. Legally, it's his. Legally? You're a judge. You know what's legal isn't always what's right. Don't lecture me about law, Jane. Ethan built a company. You built a hobby project. My mother chimed in from the kitchen. Ethan is helping create efficiency in an overburdened system. I stood up from the table. I built that tool to free people. He's using it to trap them. Ethan leaned back in his chair. That same patronizing smile from our whole childhood. You built a research project. I built a solution. I left. I didn't stay for dessert. But before I walked out, I recorded the whole conversation. Illinois is a one-party consent state. I didn't need their permission. By March 2023, I'd started keeping files. Every email, every text, every article about Justice AI, every public contract disclosure. In December 2023, I found out my mother's consulting firm had been hired by Justice AI, $150,000 annual retainer to advise on prosecutor outreach strategy. She knew it was my work. She took the contract anyway. At Christmas 2024, Ethan announced Series B, $65 million at a $520 million valuation. I brought up the 8,000 people who'd been denied parole based on Justice AI scores. I'd calculated it from the public contracts. 50,000 decisions over 3 years. Approximately 16% denial rate attributable to algorithmic scoring. 8,000 people denied freedom by my code. My mother's response: the courts need better tools. Ethan is providing them. I looked at my father, at my mother, at my brother. They'd chosen $200,000 investment, $150,000 consulting fee, $85 million personal stake for Ethan. They knew he'd stolen my work. They knew what he'd done with it. And they'd profited anyway. I left the public defender's office in January 2025. Not because I wanted to, because I needed time to build a case that would actually work. I took a contract legal research position, remote work, flexible hours. It paid enough to keep my studio apartment and buy time. In February 2025, I contacted Gabriel Morrison, a reporter at ProPublica, Criminal Justice Desk. I'd read his work on algorithmic bias in sentencing. I sent him 3 things. First, my GitHub repository, time-stamped commits from 2020 and 2021, every line of code, every training dataset, every test result. Second, Ethan's codebase. I'd obtained it from a former Justice AI employee who'd quit over ethical concerns, a whistleblower who saw what I saw. Third, a side-by-side code comparison. 95% overlap in core functions. The only significant changes were the inverted scoring mechanism and the rebranded interface. Gabriel called me back in 3 days. This is incredible, but I need more than code. I need human impact. I need documentation. I need to verify everything. I have all of that, I said. How long do you need? For the next 10 months, Gabriel Morrison and his team fact-checked every single claim. I gave them emails from February through April 2022, where Ethan asked me to explain how the algorithm works. Recordings of our April conversation where he pitched the partnership. His voice asking about the neural network architecture. My voice explaining the training methodology. Patent filings showing my provisional applications from March, June, and November 2021, all predating Justice AI's incorporation by over a year. Technical documentation proving I'd created the core methodology. In April 2025, I reached out to all 12 exonerees. I explained what Ethan had done, how he'd taken the tool that freed them and corrupted it into a tool that now tracked them. 8 agreed to be interviewed on the record. 2 participated anonymously. They had jobs now, families, privacy concerns. 2 declined interviews but signed a joint statement. All 12 signed the joint statement together. We were freed by Jane Jerry's work. We trusted her algorithm because it looked for truth. Learning that her own brother stole that work and weaponized it against others, against us, is a betrayal beyond words. We stand with Jane. And we demand that every person denied freedom by recidivism predict receive a fair review. In June, I contacted a staffer at the Senate Judiciary Committee, a connection from law school. I explained the situation. IP theft. Federal contracts. $8 billion in government money going to algorithmic tools built on stolen work. She asked for documentation. I sent her everything. In August 2025, I learned that Core Civic, the largest private prison corporation in America, was in acquisition talks with Justice AI. I felt sick. CoreCivic profits from mass incarceration. They own and operate private prisons across the country. Their business model depends on high occupancy rates, and now they wanted to own the corrupted version of my algorithm, the tool that could help keep their facilities full. On September 15th, the acquisition was announced publicly. $400 million. Expected close date, January 2nd, 2026. Ethan stood to make $85 million personally. I had 4 months. Gabriel Morrison's investigation took until December. I respect that. Real journalism requires verification. Every fact checked, every source confirmed, every piece of code analyzed by independent experts. By mid-December, the article was ready. 8,500 words, 45 embedded exhibits, interviews with 8 exonerees, expert analysis from 3 computer science professors at Stanford, MIT, and UC Berkeley. Gabriel asked me, "When do you want this to run?" I looked at the acquisition timeline. Deal announced September 15th. Definitive agreement signed November 10th. Scheduled closing January 2nd. If I waited until after the closing, CoreCivic would own the algorithm. They'd have the resources to bury this, tie it up in litigation for years. I needed to detonate before the deal closed. New Year's Eve, I said. Midnight, January 1st. Gabriel paused. That's dramatic. It's strategic. The acquisition team will be celebrating. The press cycle will be slow. It'll dominate the news for 72 hours before anyone can spin it. You've thought about this. I've thought about nothing else for 3 years. On December 28th, my parents sent out printed invitations for New Year's Eve. A gala at the Lake Forest Estate. 300 guests. Federal judges, law firm partners, prosecutors, justice AI investors, CoreCivic executives. The invitation was beautiful. Cream cardstock, gold lettering, celebrating Ethan's success. My name wasn't on it. On December 30th, at 3:15 in the afternoon, my mother called. Her voice had none of the polite warmth she used in public. It was ice. Pure contempt. Don't come to New Year's Eve. You'll only embarrass everyone. This night is for celebrating your brother Ethan's $400 million acquisition by CoreCivic. Your pathetic little justice fantasies would ruin everything. I didn't argue. I said, "I understand perfectly, Mom." She hung up. I sat in my studio apartment in Logan Square. 520 square feet. 4th floor walk-up. Radiator that clanked. $1,350 a month. 35 miles away, my family was preparing to celebrate a deal built on my stolen work. I opened my laptop, pulled up 3 drafted emails. Email 1. Senate Judiciary Committee. Subject: Formal complaint. Algorithmic justice, IP theft, and federal contracts. Attached: 200 pages of documentation. Sworn affidavit. Timeline. Evidence. Everything. Email 2. Gabriel Morrison, ProPublica. Subject: Green light. Message: Publish at 12:01 a.m., January 1st, 2026. Email 3. All 12 exonerees. Subject: It's time. Message: The article publishes at midnight. Your statement goes live at the same time. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for speaking truth. I set all 3 emails to send at exactly 12 o'clock a.m. Then I ordered Thai food. Pad Thai, spring rolls, Thai iced tea. $18.50 from Spoon Thai on Milwaukee Avenue. The same order I'd been getting for 3 years. I spent New Year's Eve alone. No party, no champagne, no countdown with friends. Just me, leftover Pad Thai, and a laptop screen showing 3 emails queued to detonate my family's world. At 11:58 p.m., I did a final review. Every exhibit, every citation, every piece of evidence. At 11:59 p.m., I pressed send. The emails disappeared from my drafts folder. Delivery scheduled. Irreversible. I turned on the TV, muted. Chicago's New Year's Eve coverage from Navy Pier. 35 miles north, 300 people in formal wear were counting down to midnight. Champagne ready. Ethan at the center of it all. my parents beaming with pride. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. I watched the clock on my laptop. 3, 2, 1. 12 o'clock a.m., January 1st, 2026. My phone stayed silent for exactly 90 seconds. Then it exploded. Ethan called first. 6 times in 3 minutes. I didn't answer. My father called. 12 times. Didn't answer. My mother called. 5 times. Didn't answer. Unknown numbers. 15 calls. Probably investors. Probably lawyers. Text messages flooded in. 52 in the first 5 minutes. My mother. How could you do this to your family? I turned my phone face down. Opened my laptop. Pulled up ProPublica. The article was live. The freedom algorithm that became a prison tool. How one woman's code to free the innocent was stolen and weaponized. By Gabriel Morrison, senior investigative reporter. A ProPublica investigation reveals that Justice AI Technologies' flagship product, Recidivism Predict, is built on code stolen from Jane Jerry, JD, a former Cook County public defender. Jerry developed the algorithm between 2020 and 2021 to identify wrongful convictions. Her brother, Ethan Jerry, JD/MBA, took the code in 2022 and inverted its purpose, using the same pattern recognition system to predict recidivism rather than identify innocence. The result? Approximately 8,000 individuals have been denied parole based on an algorithm that was originally designed to free people, not trap them. I scrolled through the exhibits. Side-by-side code comparison, email screenshots, patent filing dates, expert testimony, everything I'd documented, everything I'd proven, public and irrefutable. On Medium, the joint statement from the 12 exonerees had published at 12:01:15. Already 1,500 claps. On Twitter, #JusticeAIScandal was beginning to trend. At 12:07, I silenced my phone completely. At 12:18, Ethan called for the 7th time. I answered, party noise in the background, music, voices, then just his breathing. Jane. His voice was tight. Controlled panic. What did you do? ProPublica they published something. They have our emails. They interviewed the people you freed. Dad saw the article and he's not okay. Mom is screaming. Investors are calling. CoreCivic's general counsel is calling. What did you do? I could hear it all falling apart in real time. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I said. My voice was steady, calm. It was theft. And now everyone knows. Jane, please, we can fix this. Just tell them. Tell them it was a collaborative. I hung up. I didn't need to hear his excuses. The truth was already public. By 6 a.m., the article had been shared 85,000 times. The New York Times picked it up. The Washington Post, CNN. By noon, the Senate Judiciary Committee had released a statement. Why? This committee has received a detailed complaint regarding Justice AI Technologies and serious allegations of intellectual property theft, algorithmic bias, and the potential misuse of federal contracts totaling approximately $8 billion. We are announcing a formal inquiry. When $8 billion in taxpayer funds are involved, committees move quickly. At 3 a.m. on January 1st, CoreCivic's legal team sent a letter to Justice AI invoking the Material Adverse Change Clause in the acquisition agreement. Translation: the deal was on hold, pending resolution of the IP ownership questions. The $400 million acquisition effectively died in the first 3 hours of the new year. By January 2nd, Justice AI's paper valuation had dropped from $520 million to approximately $150 million. Ethan's personal stake, from $85 million to $25 million. 6 states suspended use of Recidivism Predict pending investigation. On January 3rd, the Senate Judiciary Committee announced a hearing. Subject: Algorithmic Justice, IP Theft, and the Weaponization of AI. I was invited to testify. Voluntarily, I accepted. On January 4th, the ACLU filed a class action lawsuit. Named defendants: Justice AI Technologies, Ethan Jerry personally, and 12 state prison systems. They were seeking an injunction against the algorithm's use and a review of all 50,000 decisions where it had been used. On January 5th, the Illinois Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission announced a formal ethics investigation into Ethan. Potential violations: misrepresentation, conflicts of interest. In 5 days, everything my brother had built collapsed. In 5 days, the algorithm I'd created to free 12 people stopped being used to trap 8,000. That wasn't revenge, that was correction. On January 6th, my father called. First time since midnight. "Jane, we need to talk about this privately. You're destroying the family name. Ethan destroyed it when he stole my work. You destroyed it when you invested $200,000 knowing the truth. This is a business dispute. This is 8,000 people denied freedom because of corrupted code. Don't minimize it." He hung up. On January 8th, my mother showed up at my apartment, unannounced. She'd never visited before. Didn't know I lived in a 4th-floor walk-up with no elevator. She was out of breath when I opened the door. Holding 2 coffees from Starbucks like this was a casual catch-up. "What do you want, Jane?" "Money. Recognition. We can fix this quietly. Ethan can add you retroactively as a co-founder. We can issue a joint statement. I want the algorithm taken out of circulation. I want the 8,000 people denied parole to get fair reviews. I don't want your money. You're being unreasonable." "I'm being precise. There's a difference." She left the coffee on my counter. I poured it down the sink after she left. On January 10th, Ethan's lawyers sent a settlement offer. $2 million. Retroactive co-founder title. 8% equity in the restructured company. One condition: I issue a public statement saying the dispute has been resolved amicably. I read it once, laughed, didn't bother with a counteroffer. My lawyer sent back a single sentence: Ms. Jerry declines. On January 12th, my father tried the family group text. I was still included somehow. Theodore: "Jane, you're tearing this family apart over a business dispute." I typed my response carefully. I didn't tear it apart. I showed where it was already broken. You chose money over justice. Ethan chose theft over integrity. I chose truth. We all made our choices. I left the group chat. On January 15th, my parents' attorney sent a formal letter. They wanted me to sign a confidentiality agreement. Stop making public attacks. They threatened to reevaluate family trust distributions. I forwarded the letter to Gabriel Morrison at ProPublica. He called me. "Your parents are threatening to disinherit you?" "Apparently. That's incredibly bad optics for them." "I know." "Are you okay?" I paused. Was I okay? "Yeah," I said. "I'm okay. I don't need their money. I never did." On January 20th, I testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee. The hearing room was packed. Cameras everywhere. Senators on both sides. This was somehow a bipartisan issue. Senator Hassan asked the question directly. "Ms. Jerry, based on your analysis of public contracts, how many people have been denied parole based on your stolen algorithm?" I'd prepared for this. Approximately 8,000 based on disclosed contracts. The actual number could be higher. Many jurisdictions don't publicly report algorithmic tool usage. Senator Hawley from the other side. "And your brother's company. Just to say, they were aware this was your work?" I have emails from February through April 2022 where my brother asked me to explain how the algorithm functioned. He couldn't have asked me to explain it if he'd invented it himself. Murmurs in the gallery. The questioning went on for 2.5 hours. I brought printed code comparisons, timelines, case studies. I wasn't there to perform. I was there to document. On January 25th, the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division opened an investigation. Focus: whether recidivism predict violated due process rights. They were reviewing all 50,000 parole and sentencing decisions. By January 28th, 11 states had formally suspended the algorithm. They appointed special masters to review affected cases. The systemic response kept building. The Federal Judicial Conference issued guidance warning judges about proprietary algorithms without transparency. Tech ethics coalitions published case studies. The Justice AI scandal became required reading in 15 law school courses on technology and justice. On February 15th, a bill was introduced in Congress. the Algorithmic Accountability in Criminal Justice Act. It would require transparency, independent audits, and the right to challenge algorithmic decisions. None of this brought me joy. Not exactly. But it meant the fight was bigger than me now. Bigger than my family. It was about every algorithm making life or death decisions. About who writes the code. About who it serves. And then slowly, something else started happening. On February 18th, Northwestern Law invited me to guest lecture. Legal Ethics and Technology. When I walked into the lecture hall, the students stood and applauded. The professor introduced me. Jane Jerry showed an entire generation what integrity looks like. Even when it costs everything, I didn't feel like I'd shown integrity. I felt like I'd done the only thing I could do, and still look at myself in the mirror. But I spoke for 90 minutes about IP protection, about moral purpose in code, about the difference between legal and right. Afterward, 12 students came up to me. They all wanted to work in public defense. They all wanted to build tools that serve justice, not just efficiency. One of them, a second-year student named Maya, asked, "How did you know you were doing the right thing even when your whole family was against you?" I thought about it. I didn't know. I just knew I couldn't live with the alternative. On February 20th, the Illinois Innocence Project gave me an award, Champion of Justice. 8 of the 12 exonerees attended. Anthony Mitchell introduced me on stage. Jane Jerry gave us freedom. Then she protected that freedom from being weaponized against others. She didn't just fight for us. She fought for the 8,000 people she'll never meet. That's not just justice. That's love. I cried during his speech. Not elegant tears. Ugly crying. The kind that comes from 3 years of carrying something heavy and finally being able to set it down. After the ceremony, Anthony pulled me aside. "My nephew's case is being reviewed. He was denied parole 3 times because of that algorithm. Because of you, he's getting a fair hearing now." I hugged him. Because of all of us. The job offers started coming. ACLU, Director of Algorithmic Justice Project, DOJ Civil Rights Division, Special Counsel on Technology and Justice, NYU Law, Clinical Professor, Technology and Criminal Justice Clinic. I chose DOJ. Not because it paid the most. Government salary, $145,000, still less than big law. But because I could write federal guidelines, shape policy, make sure what happened with my algorithm couldn't happen again. On March 1st, Ethan resigned as CEO of Justice AI. He stayed on the board. No operational role. The Illinois ethics investigation was ongoing. No findings yet. These things take time. 6 to 18 months typically. But his reputation was done. Every article about algorithmic bias now mentioned his name. Stanford quietly removed him from their notable alumni page. The company restructured. They brought in an outside CEO with a background in legal ethics. And they did something I hadn't expected. They open-sourced the algorithm. My original code, second chance, they offered me a consulting contract. I accepted on one condition. All my fees go to an exoneree support fund. On March 5th, the Judicial Ethics Panel cleared my father. Technically, he'd retired before investing. No active cases affected. No violations. But his reputation took the hit anyway. He resigned from every nonprofit board. The Chicago legal community, the same community that had celebrated him for 25 years, went quiet when his name came up. My mother closed her consulting practice. No announcement, just took down the website. On March 12th, they sent me an email. Subject: "We need to talk." Body: 3 paragraphs of standard apology language, offering family therapy, asking if we could move past this. I read it twice, then wrote back, "I appreciate the email. I'm not ready to talk. Maybe someday, but that day isn't today." I didn't say I'd never forgive them. I didn't say I would. I just told the truth. On March 15th, I accepted the DOJ position. Start date, March 28th. Washington, D.C. I had to leave Chicago, the city I'd lived in for 7 years, the city where I'd become a lawyer, where I'd freed 12 people, where I'd lost my family and found myself. On March 18th, my real family, the one I'd chosen, threw me a farewell dinner. Not at a restaurant, at a community center on the South Side where Anthony Mitchell volunteers, teaching re-entry support, helping people coming home from prison. 12 exonerees and their families, 6 former public defender colleagues, Gabriel Morrison from ProPublica, the ACLU attorney who'd filed the class action, potluck style. Anthony's wife made her famous mac and cheese. Maria Vasquez brought tamales. Keisha Roberts made sweet potato pie. No fancy wine. No speeches prepared in advance. Just people who'd fought for truth sitting around folding tables eating good food. Anthony stood up to toast. To Jane, who taught us that justice isn't about winning. It's about truth. It's about being seen. It's about refusing to disappear just because someone wants you to. Everyone raised their glasses. Plastic cups filled with grocery store sparkling cider. I looked around that room. These were my people. Not because we shared blood, because we shared something harder. We'd all refused to accept a narrative that erased us. On March 20th, I was packing my apartment. Found an old photo stuck in a book. Jerry Family Christmas 2016. Everyone smiling. Matching sweaters. The illusion of happiness. I looked at it for a long time. That family didn't exist anymore. Maybe it never had. But the family I'd found, the exonerees, the defenders, the fighters, the truth tellers, that family was real. On March 22nd, my mother texted, "Will you call when you're settled in D.C.? I stared at the message for 10 minutes. Finally, maybe. But I can't promise when. Her response came an hour later. I understand. I'm sorry, Jane. For all of it. I read it. Typed back. I know. That was enough for now. On March 28, 2026, I walked into the Robert F. Kennedy Building in Washington, D.C. My first day at the Department of Justice. My office was small. Government issue desk. 2 chairs. A window overlooking Pennsylvania Avenue. My team. 6 attorneys, 3 data scientists, 2 policy analysts. Our first project. A national audit of algorithmic tools in criminal justice. Making sure what happened with recidivism, predict never happened again. On March 30th, I got an email from Anthony Mitchell. Subject, he's coming home. Message, nephew's case was reviewed. Parole granted. He's coming home next month. He wanted me to thank you. Attached, a photo. Anthony on a video call with his nephew. Both of them smiling. I printed it, pinned it to my office wall. By March 31st, the statistics were starting to come in. 18 states had completed their reviews of Justice AI-influenced decisions. 1,200 cases under reevaluation. 89 people granted parole after the algorithmic bias was removed. 89 people, walking free because the truth came out. That number would grow. The reviews were ongoing. I haven't spoken to Ethan since New Year's Eve. I exchange occasional texts with my mother. Birthday, major holidays, surface-level check-ins. My father sent one letter. I haven't responded yet. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. The relationship is distant but civil. It might heal someday. It might not. And I'm okay with that. Because I learned something these past 3 years. Family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by who sees you, who believes you, who fights alongside you when everything is falling apart. Anthony Mitchell saw me. Gabriel Morrison saw me. Those 12 exonerees saw me. My parents never did. Not really. But I don't need them to anymore. My name is Jane Jerry. I'm 31 years old. 1 year ago, I spent New Year's Eve alone, pressing send on 3 emails that would change everything. I didn't destroy my family. I refused to let them destroy justice. The algorithm I built has helped review 1,200 cases. 89 people are free who wouldn't have been. That number will keep growing. Ethan's company still exists, but it's no longer his. It's no longer a prison tool. It's what I always intended, a second chance tool. My family's name isn't what it was, but my work is finally what it should be. And knowing that code I wrote at 2 a.m. on a public defender's salary is now helping people I'll never meet. That's not just vindication. That's purpose. That's justice. That's home. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. This story isn't just mine. It's every person who's been told their work doesn't matter. Every person who's been erased from a narrative they built. Every person who chose truth when silence would have been easier. Drop a comment and let me know. Have you ever had to fight for credit for your own work? Have you ever had to choose between family and integrity? I want to hear your story. And if this resonated with you, if you felt that punch in the chest, hit subscribe. Because there are more stories like this. Stories about people who refused to disappear, who documented everything, who waited for the right moment, and who won not because they were louder, but because they were right. The truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be heard.